Way before the first selfie, the ancient Greeks and Romans had a myth about someone a little too obsessed with his own image. In one telling, Narcissus was a handsome guy wandering the world in search of someone to love. After rejecting a nymph named Echo, he caught a glimpse of his own reflection in a river and fell in love with it. Unable to tear himself away, Narcissus drowned. Myth captures the basic idea of narcissism, elevated and sometimes detrimental self-involvement. But it's not just a personality type that shows up in advice columns. It's actually a set of traits classified and studied by psychologists. The psychological definition of narcissism is an inflated, grandiose self-image. To varying degrees, narcissists think they're better looking, smarter, and more important than other people, and that they deserve special treatment. Psychologists recognize two forms of narcissism as a personality trait: grandiose and vulnerable narcissism. There's also narcissistic personality disorder, a more extreme form, which we'll return to shortly. Grandiose narcissism is the most familiar kind, characterized by extroversion, dominance, and attention-seeking. Grandiose narcissists pursue attention and power, sometimes as politicians, celebrities, or cultural leaders. Narcissists tend to act selfishly, so narcissistic leaders may make risky or unethical decisions. When their rosy view of themselves is challenged, they can become resentful and aggressive. It's like a disease where the sufferers feel pretty good, but the people around them suffer. Taken to the extreme, this behavior is classified as a psychological disorder called narcissistic personality disorder. It affects 1 to 2% of the population, more commonly men. It is also a diagnosis reserved for adults. The 5th edition of the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual describes several traits associated with narcissistic personality disorder. They include a grandiose view of oneself, problems with empathy, a sense of entitlement, and a need for admiration or attention. What makes these traits a true personality disorder is that they take over people's lives and cause significant problems. Imagine that instead of caring for your spouse or children, you used them as a source of attention or admiration. Or imagine that instead of seeking constructive feedback about your performance, you instead told everyone who tried to help you that they were wrong. Narcissism as a personality trait has been rising since the 1970s, when the communal focus of the 60s gave way to the self-esteem movement and a rise in materialism. More recently, social media has multiplied the possibilities for self-promotion. Though it's worth noting that there's no clear evidence that social media causes narcissism. Rather, it provides narcissists a means to seek social status and attention.
But there is pathological narcissism. And the difference between healthy and pathological narcissism is people get hurt with pathological narcissism. It's a psychological disorder.
One does not accept criticism. A narcissistic man never accepts criticism of any nature. They simply say they are right and nothing you say will change their minds. They defend their ideas to death and cannot stand anyone telling them otherwise. If you criticize them, they get angry, even if you let them know that they have the shirt collar the wrong way. 2. Their public image is more important. The public image is the most important thing to them, even more so than the genuine interactions. If someone always gives them the reason, even if what they do is visibly wrong, they will want to be with that person. They will slowly evaluate with whom it is convenient for them to be and with whom they do not, and will discard those who think differently. 3. They get angry easily. Their anger can be instantaneous and characterized by being explosions that have nothing pleasant. This happens when they feel pressured, even if there is no valid reason or it is a simple misunderstanding that can be arranged with a quiet chat without aggression or shouting. 4. They are extremists. Narcissists can be totally loyal and sing praises to those they consider similar to them, but at the slightest disappointment, they change their minds and only move away with screams and shouts. 5. They always talk about themselves. The topics of conversation of narcissistic men always revolve around themselves, or also in criticism of someone who is close, whether it is a friend, a relative, or another person. They have an air of authority that is often difficult to bear because they have a sufficiency that is not at all pleasant. They know what the other person's problem is, even if it is only in their imagination, and they also know how to solve it, but they will never try to change their way of being because they are perfect for themselves.
Another way of controlling you is by playing the victim. If they can tell you sob stories, failures, misfortunes, exaggerate the suffering that they experienced, and manipulate your empathy, then you can remain their savior, rescuer forever. They've enmeshed you in their web, and this is where being discerning with our empathy is so important. They want you to search for clues, do lifelong research, prove your loyalty, and extend your understanding. Basically, dedicate your entire life to proving how unique and special they are.
Secrets that, when used proficiently, can bring other human beings to their knees, regardless of status, intellect, education, or material wealth. Dirty secrets that can, and often do, result in their unsuspecting partners becoming so broken and dysfunctional that they lose everything. Careers, children, homes, licenses, such as those required to perform as doctors, attorneys, and therapists, bank accounts, and worst of all, their sense of self.
The focal point becomes you because of whatever you did in reaction to the abuse that took place, to the provocation that took place. One of the biggest tools of the narcissist or other cluster B is using some sort of emotional provocation. It usually comes through words. Sometimes it comes through actions, but it's usually through some kind of word that's meant to provoke you and get that emotional response. And then what happens is you feed the narcissist. You feed that manipulator with your emotional reaction. Everything the narcissist does at the beginning is to gauge your reaction, to see how you're going to react to that. Are they going to get a favorable response? Are they going to get an unfavorable response? Are they going to get something positive and then they hook you in that way? Like, do they pull you in that way? Or do they say something then that puts you on the self-defensive, that makes you self-doubt, that makes you think something was wrong with you for thinking that just because you don't agree with them? Everything is to gauge your reaction. It's all about that reaction because your reaction gives them fuel and supply. When you really understand that, you understand your power. You understand that reacting is giving away your power and responding is empowering yourself and not getting caught in that trap. Don't give them the reaction. They're always going to say something that isn't true. They're going to accuse you of doing something or being something, or you're going to say, I feel this way, when you do that. And you know yourself and you know that you're not doing that. You know that they're doing that. They want your outrage. They want your disbelief. They want you to be appalled at what they're saying, and then you get caught in the self-defense. It's one of the hardest things to do, to hear somebody slander you. Now, slander means it's not true. To hear somebody slander you and not want to defend yourself, because it's like a natural reaction. You want to defend yourself. You want to vindicate yourself because you know that you're not doing that. But this is always going to get you caught in that spider web. People who work in sales know you got to get the person into this emotional response, and then they'll say yes, and they'll take that action. Maybe you need to trigger their fear and, tell them, if you don't have this, then this and that and the other. This sort of thing is known. It also happens in the news. News is designed to provoke your emotional response to something that is either true or untrue. It doesn't matter, but the point is that they provoke your emotional response, and then they can predict the behavior that you will have, the action that you will take as a result of that. Positive talking, where they're idealizing someone or something. So-and-so is so amazing, they do this so amazing, they have this great talent, and this and that and the other. And you're thinking, this person just admires someone and they're talking positively about someone, but they're going on and on and on. And what's happening often is that they're using this as a form of triangulation. So it seems like it's so positive, and it's really hard to argue rationally with that because they're concealing their entire intentions. They're using that form of gossip as a way to manufacture jealousy in someone else. It's a way to triangulate that relationship, make you feel uncomfortable, feel, self-conscious about something, like you're not good enough, because they're implying that you're not good enough or you're not nearly as good or nearly as valuable or whatever. Like, maybe like you even have been telling them something for like months or years, right? And then they just don't pay any attention to you, and then someone else tells them that same thing. And now they believe it. And then they're just going on and on and on about how that person told them, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I told you that like a long time ago. But there's no credit thrown your way. There's like no acknowledgement. Seems like positive, but it's actually destructive. And it's actually a very covert way to manufacture jealousy. Another way that narcissists love to use gossip is the feeling of concern and care. They're on the phone or they're in person, they're just going on and on and on about how worried they are about so-and-so, and oh, it's just so hard for so-and-so, and oh, I just, you know, oh, poor so-and-so, and just on and on and on. And so what they do too is they bait you. Like if you know that other person, they will bait you to give them information. And if you give information thinking that that person is just concerned and genuinely concerned, and you feel like sharing that information might help because, you know, then maybe they'll have more information, they could offer more support to that person. Be very, very cautious. Be very cautious there, because any information that you share could end up getting used against you or that person.
This is what you lied about. This wasn't true. This is what you've told people. This is what you've done that caused me such pain in my life. Each one of us want to turn to our family and our friends and those who surround the narcissist and go, look, this person is abusive and they are lying. Each one of us have this overwhelming desire for truth and justice. Each one of us want to expose so badly the narcissist in our lives to give us validation. We've been lied to enough. We've been lied about enough. That does not work. That is exactly what the narcissist needs. Remember, the narcissist always needs supply. When you challenge, when you point out, when you expose the narcissist, that is a form of supply to the narcissist. They immediately begin thinking of ways to turn that around and make you the scapegoat. They immediately, upon being challenged, will begin their campaign of lies against you. They will immediately start their triangulation, even more so. Even when you point out to the narcissist themselves, that is a form of supply that they need to keep their sick and twisted minds going. They live on this. Narcissists have to have tremendous dysfunction in their lives to survive. They have to have turmoil in their life to survive. They have to feed off of your emotions. If you confront the narcissist by pointing out all of their wrongdoings, that is an emotion that the narcissist will feed off of and immediately use that to begin a new or extend an existing campaign against you. You cannot win this. The most you can hope for is that those around you will believe and understand. You will not be able to change the narcissist by pointing out all of their shortcomings and pointing out all of their abuses. The narcissist literally thrives on that. That is their supply. And again, I so empathize with you. How much we want to expose these people. It won't work. It literally keeps them going. In many cases, it will create narcissistic rage. That will certainly be emotional, and many times that will be abusive in a sexual fashion.
The narcissist has no use for the one he or she cannot control. Narcissists hate free spirits, the individual who is an individual, the man or woman who is able and unafraid to think critically, the person who is in touch with his or her creative side, basically anyone who is halfway capable of thinking and dreaming for themselves, will be despised by the narcissist. Why? It's because the free-spirited person presents an obstacle to the narcissist and his insatiable desire to control anybody and everybody in his or her circle of so-called relationships. A so-called relationship with a narcissist is no relationship at all. There's nothing mutual about it. It is a form of slavery. It is master to servant. It is superior to inferior. It is controller to controllee. It's not much different than the relationship a farmer has with an ox, a rancher has with a horse, or a machinist has with a press. If you provide the narcissist in your life the control they desire, they will be more than happy to maintain a, quote, relationship with you. If you do not give the narc in your life the control they desire, expect to be the target of their rage, or if you're lucky, abandonment. I say if you're lucky because many narcs seek to destroy the ones that they cannot control.